sink, break the grip, flip him over as soon as he lands. The first part of this one is not just breaking his grip, because like it's good to break the grip, but then I can actually turn it into a submission as well. So the first thing I'll do is work on getting the submission. So Bill's got me in this tight kind of body lock from behind. First thing I'm gonna do is I grab this wrist, the top wrist, with two hands, and then what I'll do from here is I sink down first. So it should be, even if he's super strong, I should be able to do that. I grab the wrist with two hands, and I basically just sink all my weight down. Then I push my back into him, and then that creates just a little bit of space. And then with that space, I bring my hand behind his elbow, and then I catch my own wrist, and then I've got the Kimura. And then because I've got this Kimura grip, now I should be able to break his grip. So the key to it is like, I'm just gonna, instead of pushing his hands away from each other, I'm just gonna push my hand onto the mat to break that grip. So again, so he's got a really tight grip, and you know, the guy can hold on as tight as he wants. The first thing I'm gonna do is I hold the wrist, but as close to the hand, covering some of the hand if I can, and then I sink my hips and push it, get his hand as close to the mat as I can. And then when I've got it as close as I can, then I push my hips back, and then that creates that little bit of space where I can get my hand in. And then as a test, look, there wouldn't have been any space at the beginning. There's no space to get that hand in there because he's squeezing you so tight, he's trying to break your ribs. But once you sink and push it back, then you've got that space. So my hand is right over the middle, like in between his wrist and his hand. It's covering that. And then my other hand is covering my own hand. And then that will make it super strong. And now even if he holds on really tight, by pushing his hand onto the floor, it'll slide off. Then after that, we've got a few options. So the first one for now, we'll just use that grip and I just turn towards him and then push his hand up towards his back. So the reason why this worked, when Sakuraba did it, or like in one of the fights that he did it, because he was already up against the ropes. So imagine the ropes are here, he turned, and then his opponent was like right up against the ropes, so there's no space for him to go. The bad news is that if you do it in a jiu-jitsu match or like in a kind of an open spot, you're gonna push him, and then he can just keep moving that direction. Oh. But for now, we'll come to that later. So just imagine there's a barrier here, I'm right up against the ropes. Once I've broken the grip and I've turned, he can't move anywhere forward, and then that's where I'll be able to get it. All right, so we start off with the same thing. So I control his wrist, sink my hips, move my hips back, bring my arm in, and then I use that Kimura grip and my hips to break his grip. Just gonna break it. And then this is what I was saying before, look, if there was a barrier, like boxing ring ropes there, this wouldn't be necessary. But if there's a bit of space, what's gonna happen is, as I turn around, I'm kind of expecting that Bill's gonna follow me around. And then look, in theory, look, what he could do is he could just keep getting around to my back again, and then he could just lock up his hands. So once I break the grip, as he's about to do that, all I'm gonna do is I put my foot inside his knee. So I've broken the grip. I basically stay almost on the same spot. My left foot stays where it is. My right foot comes around here. Then I put my left foot inside his knee. And then I just sit down and then use that to guide him over the top. So that's the next part of it. So here, so grab his wrist, sink my hips, move my hips back, hand in behind his elbow, push down to break his grip. Once I've broken that grip, I circle, and then it's almost like you're using the momentum of him circling around to get that foot in and then flick him over. And then we'll just get to this position for now, and then we'll work on the best way to finish the Kimura from here. So let's go one more time. So I see this grip, sink, push, hand in behind the elbow. Then I'm gonna, you won't actually really be able to turn until you break the grip anyway. So it's always important. Break this grip, then as you rotate, you get this foot inside his leg. And then you just sit down, and then you use that to flick him over. Keep hold of this Kimura grip though, because you're gonna use it later on. A long way to fall, and then he might panic and face plant or whatever. So if you're like me and you don't really care about if your training partner gets injured or not, then that's not a big deal. But if you want to look after them, this is like a good kind of halfway step that I invented is you get to this position, and then you basically just sit down as if you're doing a butterfly guard, and then just use it as a butterfly guard sweep. So obviously if you do that for real, if it's like a real fight and you do that for real, it's gonna be too slow and they gotta run around. But this is how you can practice it and get a lot of reps. So keep the same grip. Obviously don't crank that way up behind the shoulder, just kind of keep hold of it to control him. Then sit on the butterfly guard and then put this foot in here and then use the Kimura to just bring his shoulder to the mat and then give him a little flick over. Hold the wrist, sink my hips, push my hips back, hand behind the elbow, break his grip, rotate the face towards this way, put my foot inside his leg, flip him over, and then this is the position you end up in. And then there's quite a few other situations for where you could end up in this position, but how to make the most of it, how to transition to the Kimura from the top. So it looks complicated, but this is pretty much the easiest way to think about it. Is what I like to do is I just lift the legs up. So get both feet off the floor, and then you just basically scissor your legs. So your legs come up, and then you just scissor them, and then you'll end up here with one leg over his head, one knee kind of right beside his chin, and your elbow wants to be on the mat right beside his hip. And then a lot of times just from here, so I'll show you in a minute like we can make adjustments of it, but just from here, you'll usually find you'll probably be able to get it. The only adjustment probably you need to make is walking that foot out to get his shoulders a little bit closer on the mat, and then you just move your head back towards his knees. And the same time you do that, you scissor, and then your knees will end up in the right spot. So this one beside his head, we could knee him in the face if you wanted to. This one's keeping his head down. This elbow's close to his elbow. My other elbow's close to the hip, and I'm just moving my head back to the knees.